week's episode of Tokyo Ghoul, Route A. Kaneki finally unleashes his brand new Kakuja powers. That's what they call those powers when they have their Kagune combine over their entire body and turn into armor. It's really awesome, and his overall themed Kakuja is based on a centipede, which is already really disturbing. Those things are absolutely disgusting, and a lot of this might actually have to do with the fact that when he was being tortured by Jason, Jason was slowly putting centipedes inside of his ear, which would slowly eat away at his brain, which is already disturbing enough, but I'm really interested to see how that's had an effect on his overall moveset, which is really powerful and really flashy looking. And he actually has these two massive centipede tails, which are on his back combined with his actual Kagune tentacles, and he uses these to a great degree. And I especially love the design of the mask as well, which was slightly obscured in last week's episode, although we get a better view of it now. It actually has this long, almost like stinger-looking nose right on the front of it, which goes again really well with the whole centipede theme. And he actually fights against that one dude who has the armor, which is made out of Ayato's father's body parts, which they kind of follow up on in this week's episode, where Ayato gets the ever-living shit beat out of him. But this scene is interesting because even as he's defeated and slowly punching the guy in the armor, he looks up at him and his eyes have transformed back into a human, and that's where this guy actually sort of sympathizes with him a little bit, and that's when Kaneki just decides to come in and start messing his shit right up. If the battle scenes with Kaneki aren't going to excite you, there's at least a couple more in this episode that just might. They're still continuing the battle between Juzo and the twins, and they even go into their backstory a little bit at the beginning of the episode, and interestingly enough, these twins did want to be a part of the Ghoul investigation team, and this is of course probably before they became half Ghoul, and they had a really strange and almost estranged relationship with Juzo, who originally went by the name of Ray, and he was very similar to the way he is now, except he seems a little more hardcore and a little more dark. He doesn't even really seem to be affected by the deaths of one of his fellow Ghoul investigators, and they're still kind of keeping that whole backstory kind of muddy, but it leads to one of the more violent scenes in this week's episode, where Juzo basically just completely destroys them by cutting them up with knives, and like, when I say knives, I mean like, he has like hundreds of them that he just throws up in midair, and is constantly grabbing them, slashing them, stabbing them into their bodies, and this is a scene that they really did have to actually censor quite heavily, and they didn't like, you know, cover it with like a black filter or anything, but they made it look a little blurry so that you really couldn't see what was going on, but you could totally tell that he was just shanking them repeatedly. And also, interestingly enough, the twins actually had a relationship with Detective Amon, and they even run into him in this week's episode, but they make a quick escape, and I especially love the real subtle scene where Amon sees them run away, and the only thing that Akira can actually say is that they're ghouls. She cannot make the distinction between half-human and ghouls, and that again just shows how hardcore she really is. There's also another battle going on between that other member of the Aogiri group who has the long white coat and the weird red techno-looking ninja mask, and his name is Tadara, and this guy is awesome. He hasn't even done anything, and he's already one of my favorite members of the Aogiri group, mostly for his design, and he's fighting against that one ghoul investigator who totally looks like John Travolta, and he even has this one special ability where his Kagune weapon, or his Kinkai weapon, is actually this big, almost Mega Man Samus-looking blaster that he has over his arms, and even his other subordinate has this almost crossbow-looking Kinkai weapon, but it doesn't really seem to do much. But the one part of this episode that really surprised me the most is when Kaneki was just being defeated by the dude in the armor, who was repeatedly slashing off all of his Kagune, and even like stepping on them and slicing right through them. It was real brutal, but it was really all about that final scene where suddenly all of these bodies start falling out of the sky, and there he comes, ripping apart the freaking door, this massive owl covered in blood, literally looks like something out of Evangelion, just ripping through the top and flying down and saving Kaneki. It ends on a really nice cliffhanger this week, and I'm still kind of convinced that maybe the owl is the old guy, although just the fact that this one is bigger and he actually has darker looking hair leads me to believe that he might actually be an entire separate entity altogether. All I know is, this week's episode kicked ass. So what's the rundown? On this week's episode of Tokyo Ghoul, lots of action, good animation, tons of tense moments, and Kaneki and his centipede powers kick ass. They look so awesome. I really didn't expect it would be anything like that, especially because they really didn't give us anything in the preview from last week's episode, and when he just suddenly appeared out of nowhere with those massive, disgusting spikes exploding from his body, it looked great. The action scenes were really well animated this week, a lot better than last week's. A lot of impact and motion, just sparks flying off all of the big attacks. Just the way the Kagunes actually look when they're bubbling up out of the back of Kaneki always look really cool. His overall design, the mask and everything, I'm really digging it. I love it. I just want to know what's going on with Kaneki, why he still decided to join Aogiri group, why he doesn't want to eat people anymore, why he went into total berserker mode when he decided to start eating the armor off of that one guy. It's a really strange series. They are not revealing jack shit about Kaneki's motives. This week's episode was just plain action-packed. A lot of brand new characters, new mysterious characters. The owl coming in at the end was definitely one of the highlights, and this week's episode was just plain fun to watch. I just need some answers to go along with that action. Despite that, this week's episode was really cool to look at. I think there was a little bit of unnecessary censorship with the whole Juzo stabbing the twins with knives scene, but despite that, I'm sure it'll look really cool when it's released on its uncut Blu-ray DVD format. Still, this week's episode was awesome. Lots of action, lots of blood, lots of cool animation, really great imagery, just a lot of mystery to the series, which is going to keep people watching because they want to know what's going to happen next. So if you've been following Tokyo Ghoul, watch this episode. It's freaking awesome. Great animation, good stuff. Check it out, guys. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you like this video, how about giving it a thumbs up and liking the video? And before you guys leave, please tell me what you thought about this week's episode of Tokyo Ghoul. What did you think of Kaneki's brand new Centipede powers? And what's up with the owl suddenly appearing at the very end of this week's episode? And what do you want to see from the rest of Tokyo Ghoul Route A? If you guys have not subscribed to our channel, you can do that by clicking on the channel icon right up here. It's really easy to do. That way you'll be able to check out all of our latest anime and manga reviews, and you can also check out our brand new podcast show. We just released episode 2. You should definitely check that out. We talk a lot about a lot of cool subjects like fairy tale and freaking Fantastic Four. It's all types of stuff. It's the Powerful Nerdcast. You guys can also check us out on Facebook and on Twitter. And some cool ways you guys can help support our channel is by using our PayPal link in the description box below, or by using our Amazon Associates link. If you ever buy anything on Amazon, use our bookmark whenever you buy something. It'll help support our channel. But the best way to support our channel, as always, is to simply watch our videos, comment on them, and share them with your friends. Thank you guys for watching. Super Kami Guru 9000. Out. And then the owl comes and he's all like, blah!